Hi, everybody. Welcome to Grace with Paul Gray. Well, in Bible times, as in all times, perception is always in the eye of the beholder. The Old Testament scriptures were written only to Jews, not to any other nation. They were written exclusively by Jews, to Jews, and of course from a Jewish perspective. Jesus was a Jew who lived in Israel 2,000 years ago, and all but one of the New Testament writers were Jewish. One non-Jewish person wrote 2 books of the New Testament. In Jesus' day, in Israel, there were 2 basic people groups, Jews and everybody else. Everybody else, the Jews derisively called Gentiles. Their slang name for them was dogs. Within the Jews, from the male perspective, there were 2 basic people groups, men and women. Men had all the rights, women had none. Within the male group, they looked at people either as sinners, which is a word used in the Bible a lot. What that really meant was, or what the reality of it was, ordinary people like you and me, as contrasted with, quote, non-sinners, as perceived or judged or labeled by the proud, religious, self-righteous, self-appointed, holier-than-thou people who judged, condemned, and put down other people. They divided everything into right and wrong, which is why God didn't want us to eat from the tree of right and wrong or good and evil to begin with. These people were the self-appointed judges. They divided everything into sacred and secular, good and bad, dualism at its highest. Now, think about during that setting, what did Jesus mostly do? Mostly, he just hung out. He was just with people. What did he do when he hung out? Whatever the people did. We're told that Jesus hung out with publicans, tax collectors, sinners, ordinary people, real people. They shared music and laughter and food and fellowship. They just did life together. Did they do secular music or sacred music? Think about this. When Moses encountered God in the burning bush, God told him to take off his shoes. He said, take off your shoes because you're standing on holy ground, on sacred ground. Well, what made it holy? What made it sacred? I mean, did God touch the ground and do something that changed the composition of it? No. It was holy or sacred because God was there. That's what made it holy or sacred. When Jesus hung out with sinners, whatever they did was holy or sacred because Jesus, God, was there. It was real and raw and human. Jesus just had a way of cutting to the chase. It was hard to hide things from him, hard to pretend to be somebody that you were not. Now, lest you think that, you can only, in church and religious settings, that's where only sacred, holy things happen. Well, a lot of things that aren't so good can happen there too, but I digress. When Jesus hung out with people, they laughed and sang and ate and drank and told stories. They admitted their faults. They shared their challenges. They discussed ideas. Sure, Jesus taught, but he mostly hung out. And he used whatever settings that they were in for teachable moments. Sometimes a whole lot of people came and he taught them. But it was nothing like a continual Bible study. They had parties. Jesus healed people. I mean, what do you think the mood was like when a whole lot of people came to Jesus and one by one, he healed them? Was it somber and sacred and holy? Do you think there might have been a lot of laughing and singing and shouting and high-fiving, a lot of joy? What do you think? One of the guest writers on Richard Rohr's daily blog, Barbara Holmes, wrote, "There were also moments when the love of God and mutual care and concern became the focus of their time together. Contemplation is not confined to designated and institutional sacred spaces," she writes. She says, God breaks into nightclubs and Billie Holiday's sultry torch songs. God tap dances with Bill Bojangles Robinson. And when Coltrane blew his horn, the angels paused to consider. She says some sacred spaces bear none of the expected characteristics. The fact that some people prefer stained glass windows and pomp and circumstance has nothing to do with the so-called sacred. It may seem as if the mysteries of divine human reunion erupt in our lives when in fact the otherness of spiritual abiding is integral to human interiority. On occasion, we turn our attention to this abiding presence and we're startled, but it's always there. There are everyday life things. Beauty, she's finished writing now, these are my comments. There are everyday life things, beauty, love, friendship, compassion, mercy, grace, that simply can't be described with ordinary words. So God gave us things like art and music and literature and theater and film and photography and dance and stuff. Wherever we are, God is there. It's holy ground. It's sacred ground. There is no secular because Christ is in us. Now, do we always do the right thing? Do we always act loving? Of course not. But wherever we are, whatever we're doing, is just like when Jesus was with those folks. Jesus is with us now because he's in us. God the Father, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit are with us now. There is no sacred and no secular. It's all one. We're all one with God. We're going to look deeper into this in the days to come, specifically from a music standpoint, because that's what I have the most experience with. So hope you'll join me in the days to come. Thanks, everybody.